So today I'll be watching a popular reality TV show, Married at First Sight, to see if it can reveal bits about the psychology of relationships. So let's dive right into it.
I think we've had, our ups and downs, and it's been quite tricky. But I feel like I'm glad that we've had it early on. Hi.
It's love at first sight.
Despite having instant chemistry on their wedding day.
I've woken up with a different thought this morning. I'm not having that desire.
There's trouble in paradise, isn't it?
You know what, conflict isn't a bad thing. I'm glad we had it so that we know how to proceed.
Yeah.
It's not a nice thing to have, but it's important. Imagine if we were it's all happy daisies and roses, and it's
Going into this dinner party, we've come through our trials and tribulations. We've come back stronger, and I'm here to show off my wife and walking loud and bold, confidence, head up. I've probably got the most beautiful wife out there. We're unpenetrable right now. Hopefully we can be an inspiration to the other couples as well. And
damn, an inspiration.
yeah, definitely an inspiration.
We don't have the same reality. We do not have the same reality.
So Julia Ruth there describes their relationship as not having the same reality, which is actually a really interesting phrase because it connects with shared reality theory. And shared reality theory basically suggests that we make sense of the world around us through the fact that other people can often perceive the world or perceive events the same way as we do. So when people have the same beliefs as us or the same concerns as us, and so in this case, having the same concern about their relationship, this can help galvanize a sense that we belong to a shared reality and therefore is really important to us. First of all, it helps establish strong interpersonal connection with those people that we do think we share our reality with. We ultimately prefer people who corroborate our inner states, so who can corroborate our feelings and can corroborate our beliefs and share those things with us. But also it's useful for epistemic reasons as well. The fact that other people validate our belief systems or validate the way that we see things or validate our concerns and validate our feelings by sharing them with us and seeing the world the same way as we do can increase certainty in our beliefs and can increase certainty in the way that we see things is correct and accurate. And ultimately, therefore, from a relationship perspective, shared reality is really important in being able to basically forge strong relationships. It enhances people's relationship commitment. You might often see it in really strong relationships that people often have what we might call a sense of merged minds, where ultimately you have sort of two individuals, but actually they feel so strongly connected and on the same wavelength as one another. It's almost like they've got this kind of telepathic communication, and we might call that the idea of merged minds. Or alternatively, this sort of sense of a fused identity, that although they are two individuals, two I's, they strongly identify as a we. And so Davani not actually acknowledging the relationship struggles that they're having is actually reinforcing to Julia Ruth the fact that they don't share this same reality, that they have a very different way of seeing the world, they don't belong to the same reality, and that this is therefore actually creating a further divide between them. And ironically, if he had actually just accepted that their relationship was having difficulties and that they were going into this dinner party not necessarily impenetrable, as he says, but as a relationship that is trying to find its way forward and has had difficulties, this could have been a really strong bonding moment for them. This could have helped galvanize a sense that maybe they do share the same inner states, they do share a same reality, they do share the same concerns, they do share a similar outlook on their relationship, and that could have helped them have bond and been an important step towards progressing to a more fruitful relationship.
Well, that was wonderful. And I'm glad we waited.
Yeah, same for sure.
Definitely worth it.
Yeah.
And doing it in our own beds.
Yeah, in our house.
Probably try again. You know,
Yeah, well,
practice makes perfect.
Absolutely.
Let's just keep trying it and trying it and trying it.
Yeah.
And
Right now I feel like me and him, there's nothing we cannot handle. We're really good. I just really want this next chapter to start because I feel like we're in a really good space right now.
It's actually quite interesting that the producers here, or the editors of the show, have juxtaposed these two relationships side by putting them next to each other, because actually they evince quite opposite sides of this coin of shared reality. In the first instance, what we saw was that Devani and Julia Ruth do see the world very differently and are perceiving their relationship very differently, and this is causing a further divide between them because it's reinforcing the fact that they don't share a reality. Yet on this occasion, what we see is David and Keir appear to actually be more in a sense of a sort of shared reality. That what you can kind of see in this interaction between them in bed is that they seem to be on the same wavelength. They're often finishing each other's sentences or riffing off each other's ideas, and sort of appear to have this sort of same stream of consciousness. It's kind of like they can read each other's minds. It's that kind of merged minds that I mentioned earlier. That really is a kind of sign of a strong and healthy relationship, and a relationship that's likely to perhaps have great success in the future. And another element here to their interaction is how they're giving the same sort of reactions to the event around them. So the fact that they're communicating and what they're talking about. They're often smiling at each other or laughing at the same joke to each other. And this is something that we call eye sharing. So eye sharing is when we have the same simultaneous reaction to something, the same as another person would do. So for example, when we all laugh at the same joke, or we all celebrate when somebody scores a goal in football, or react with frustration at the same sort of event, that helps us give us a sense that we share a reality with one another. So eye sharing helps reinforce a specific type of a shared reality, and can again really be useful in relationships, in forging strong, committed relationships. Studies show, for example, that the more that partners feel like they eye share with one another, so they have sort of simultaneous reactions or see the world the same way as we do, and ultimately gives us a sense that our partner truly gets us, that we're able to be our true selves around our partner, and our partner truly understands us at our core. And that's often an important component in a healthy and functioning and strongly committed relationship.
Dean, what do you hope for in our future together?
I hope that we can kind of just continue like getting to know each other and grow and not have any pressure on anything and just concentrate on us, you know, just make sure we're okay. I'm hoping it'll kind of get to that place where that spark is there and it's kind of magical.
It's making me cringe a little bit. I don't want magical, I want fiery. I came here to find the one. I've given this opportunity and this experience everything, like everything. There's something not right here.
What's really interesting in Dean and Sarah's relationship is that Sarah's been quite clear throughout that she just does not find Dean attractive, as well as there have been other aspects about his personality that she sort of says gives her the ick. And the experts rightly kind of point out that the way in which she kind of communicates her unhappiness with Dean is quite disrespectful and is quite poorly handled. She could certainly do a lot better in terms of how she goes about speaking about her relationship to other people in the show. But in all fairness to Sarah, I think it's important to point out that attractiveness is the strongest predictor of why people choose to date someone. So understandably, the lack of physical attraction that she has with Dean could be a problem for her, and really kind of getting their relationship off the ground. I suppose it remains to be seen whether maybe she can learn to create space to see whether that attraction can build. But certainly her initial lack of attraction to him is certainly an understandable problem as to why they're struggling in their relationship. But what's quite interesting is Sarah's reaction to Dean's question to the honesty box. And it's actually quite characteristic of what psychologists would call a negative sentiment override. This is essentially when somebody builds up a very negative perception of somebody else. And obviously in this case, we know that Sarah doesn't find Dean attractive. Sarah finds Dean's personality on some levels quite grating. And she overall has quite a negative perception of her relationship with Dean. And what happens in negative sentiment override is that it basically overrides our ability to actually see the positive in some people's behavior. And so what often happens is that when some people say some things are quite neutral, or even in this case quite positive, I think most of us could agree that Dean's answer to that question at the very minimum is neutral, or could be perceived as quite positive. He's just sort of saying, hey, look, I hope that we can create space to ignite a spark, and then maybe something magical could happen between us. I think most of us could agree there isn't really anything wrong with that answer. But she actually manages to find something negative in it by going, what I want is not magical, but fiery. She sees the cringe in it and says, again, this is just another example of something that I don't want. And this is actually a really good example of a negative sentiment override. And actually what happens in more positive relationships is the opposite, which is a positive sentiment override, where actually we overlook maybe our partner's misgivings and flaws and issues when maybe they say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing from time to time. So in unhealthy, poorly functioning relationships, a negative sentiment override exists, where essentially everything is viewed through a negative lens, even behavior that is neutral or positive, and people never give the benefit of the doubt to their partner. They always latch into the problem with what they said rather than actually the correctness or good bits about what they said. And in good, healthy, functioning relationships, it's a positive sentiment override, where we give the benefit of the doubt in the opposite way. We believe our partner is good, we believe our partner is well-intentioned, and so when they say the wrong thing, or maybe say something that might have been slightly upsetting, we go, oh, you know what? I'm sure he didn't mean it that way. And so we give them the benefit of the doubt, that positive sentiment override.
And that's class.
Oh, that's cute.
I think that's the best photo I've ever had.
Yeah, same.
I do really like Stephen. The honeymoon was amazing. But now we're in the real world, I'm just a bit apprehensive of how it's going to go, and the bubble's going to be burst. This is probably going to be the biggest test living together.
Yeah, it'll be the biggest test, absolutely.
Is there anything you think I could work on?
I'll say the side way, like, you just want that little bit of reassurance from me. I think reassurance for me can be quite hard to give if I felt like I've given enough.
Mm-hmm. A lot of my friends, they say like I'll self-sabotage, but I need reassurance because boyfriends in the past have blindsided me and I've had no idea. So I do need a little bit of reassurance sometimes.
So I think Nellie and Stephen's relationship is really one to watch here and see how it unfolds over time. Nellie's been quite honest about her insecurities in relationships, particularly after being cheated on in the past. And she even mentions here that some of her friends have told her that she engages in what we call self-sabotaging behavior. Self-sabotaging behavior can be quite a common occurrence in relationships. People often do it because they worry about the fear of getting hurt, which often might be a reflection of their attachment anxiety, or in this case, seems to be a product of Nellie's previous experiences of being hurt in relationships. Self-sabotaging behavior can take various different forms. Sometimes it can be through sort of attacking your partner, so that might be criticizing them constantly, or in the inverse, it can be through withdrawing from your partner. The aim there really ultimately is to test your partner, to see how they react to this sort of negative behavior, to see if maybe they question the relationship, to see maybe if they leave the relationship. And that ultimately, if partners then do react that way, it leads to that kind of self-fulfilling prophecy where the person who's engaging in that self-sabotaging behavior goes, I see that after all, that person didn't really truly care about me that much or didn't love me enough. So there are other types of self-sabotaging behavior, something that we as psychologists might call hypervigilance. So when people often are sort of checking with their partner and seeing how they react to certain things or seeing whether they like other people. And we see later on in the episode that Nellie confesses to the other women in the experiment that she asked Stephen whether he found any of the other brides more attractive than her. And it's this kind of hypervigilant behavior that can equally be self-sabotaging. It can kind of grind people down and ultimately it's just trying to find an entry point into seeing the kind of chink in the armor of the relationship. Often people who engage in this kind of hypervigilant behavior by asking these kind of questions, it's really driven by a preconceived notion that ultimately you don't think you stack up to the people around you. So it might be a reflection of people with somewhat low self-esteem, for example. And perhaps maybe in this case, Nellie doesn't believe that her attractiveness matches up to the other brides in the experiment and has a preconceived notion that Stephen probably finds other people in the experiment more attractive. It'll be really interesting to sort of see how this dynamic between them plays out over the course of the coming weeks. And there are actually clues that maybe these insecurities that Nellie has may actually pose a problem for their relationship. For example, in that interaction, Stephen questions whether he can really kind of give the level of reassurance that Nellie needs. He says, I find it difficult to keep giving reassurance when I feel like I've given enough. And I think that will be really interesting to see how that plays out over the coming weeks. When the sort of shine of the relationship wears off, whether he really kind of grows fatigued by having to kind of constantly reassure Nellie. And it could very well open up some interesting questions about how well they navigate kind of rocky moments of their relationship. In the certain rocky moments, someone who is slightly insecure probably is going to need that level of reassurance even more so than maybe what they do right now. And it will be interesting to see whether Stephen can really find it within him to keep reassuring her on the level that Nellie feels that she needs. Or maybe whether it will be the case that the experts can really help give Nellie some sound advice in helping her to manage her insecurities so it doesn't lead to a sort of self-sabotaging tendency for this relationship.